All right, 10-minute snack. Everyone knows the rules. Let's eat. Okay, so today I have the pleasure of getting to have a snack with Dani Conway, who, I've followed your work for quite some time. You've been meat-based keto carnivore for 15 years or so or more. You've personally got great results. Now you're helping other people get great results. And one of the one reason I'm really excited to talk today is because you have done so much continuing education, I'll call it. You have all these certifications in a whole breadth of, areas. And to me, that's like a cardinal sign of like someone you want to get information with, someone who just doesn't stop learning. And one of your certifications really stuck out to me called the Midlife Hormone Mastery. And so I get lots of questions regarding hormones, specifically a lot of perimenopausal. I'll hear a lot like my hormones are whacked, my hormones are out of balance. What do I do? And a lot of times, I feel like it's kind of a vague thing. Maybe it's a self-diagnosis, which is fine. But they're like, my hormones are out of whack, and always want to be like, well, what hormones? What do you mean by out of whack? What do you mean by balance? And so maybe you could help me, help the listeners understand a little bit more. What does it mean, like, if hormones are out of balance, out of whack, and what do you do to balance them?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think hormones, just in general, as far as the topic goes, are they're very misunderstood because we have so many different hormones. And of course, usually when I'm hearing about hormone imbalances, it's more related to premenopause, perimenopause, postmenopausal, as far as symptoms and where they are in stage of life. So, with that being said, typically the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And then in my practice, I really focus a lot on the adrenals and the thyroid as well, because it's really important to realize that hormones are part of an entire system. And it's not just one hormone here and one hormone there. And so, this is the biggest, I think, discrepancy or difference with functional versus Western medicine of like, I want to know what everything's doing and how it's relating to each other, working together or not working together. Typically, it's the not working together that's going to create or cause a lot of the symptoms.
Yeah, and I know you talk a lot about root cause, which I think is so important because a lot of times, like you said, in Western medicine, we might see hypothyroid, throw thyroid hormone at it without like saying, okay, what's the underlying root cause?
Right.
And sometimes maybe there is just a hormone, deficiency. But a lot of times I find there is like a root cause underneath, like the hormones being out of whack. Do you take a nutrition first approach? How do you go at this root cause?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So my approach with all clients is always food first. So I really believe that food is the foundation for everything that we do, and getting that right, of course, the types of foods, and yes, animal-based foods for sure, but then in the right macro balance as well, proteins, fats, and then of course carbohydrates if somebody's eating carbohydrates. So that's kind of the first step of the approach. And then as far as root cause and figuring out what's going on and what's causing the imbalances, that's where I dive into blood work, functional testing, hormone testing, gut testing to see really what imbalances are happening that are creating that the symptoms. And then, as far as the food approach, a huge root cause I see with hormone imbalance, especially thyroid imbalance, is under eating, chronic under eating, yo-yo dieting for years. I mean, that was my history as well. And so that piece of, restriction dieting and trying to, eat 1200 calories and survive and all of that, even if it's years ago, that plays a big role into, how somebody is or isn't losing weight, what their symptoms are now, and that kind of a thing.
So a lot of times you'll have someone chronically under eating and they still have weight to lose, or at least that they would really like to lose.
Right.
How do you approach that?
So that's a great question. So first of all, I want to always make sure that they're eating the right amount for their body metabolism. And sometimes we have to slowly increase that if they have been under eating for a very long time. And then from there, my focus is always the root cause healing first and the weight loss second. So I believe that weight loss will happen as a byproduct of the body being healthy and in balance. And of course, someone can lose weight along the way, so to speak, in terms of getting back into balance. But my initial focus is never just the weight loss.
Right. That's the approach that I also kind of like to take. Like, let's get healthy first. And oftentimes the body composition you want is a natural byproduct of that.
Right.
And then I always say, like, down the road, if we need to tinker with XYZ, we can do that. So that's super helpful. There is one last thing I really, keen to hear what you think about regarding hormones, especially related to meat-based, low-carb carnivore diets. Certain hormone panels, I see a good amount of them, that look irregular, that may not. Or what are your thoughts about that? Thyroid is a classic one where maybe you just don't need as much.
I knew you were going to say that, like the keto carnivore approach is the cause of that.
Well, exactly. But the cause, just because the panel, a number on a lab says something, may or may not indicate a problem.
Correct. Yeah. So first of all, I think that it's the commonality of the chronic undereating and even overeating, undereating, back and forth dieting, losing, gaining, that whole process is so common with people that get into this way of eating, because a lot of them have tried so many things. And this is sort of like, well, I haven't tried this yet, I'm going to try this to see if this helps. And many have heard that animal-based foods can be really healing and helpful for hormones, and some haven't, some it's a new concept. So that is, part of it. And then in terms of like lab numbers and lab values, I mean, I never make one lab value mean anything as far as, I don't want to say a diagnosis because I don't diagnose anything, but just as far as this, let's just say a symptom. So I'm always correlating the entire expanded thyroid panel. Do they have high antibodies? What do their B vitamins look like? What are their minerals doing? What is everything else doing? And then from there saying, okay, this is what the whole picture is telling us versus, one low lab value, so to speak.
Right. So a lot of times someone will get a lab panel, they're feeling great, but they're like, well, I need to check my blood work.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, well, we'll just stick with thyroid, is a little bit low,
Yeah.
but they don't have any clinical symptoms of hypothyroidism. So you have to actually take reality with, what a number on a lab panel says. You got to account for everything, the whole picture, like you said.
Right. No, I think that's exactly right. And again, addressing and looking at what the whole panel, if you will, or even the just regular blood markers. I mean, when I run blood work, there's 87 markers on the comprehensive panel that I run. So it's much more than just one value.
Right. And one thing I actually love to hear your thoughts on it. I like to tell people lines over dots. And what I mean by that is, like, they get a panel and I'm like, okay, all that is one dot, but you get that same panel, you might get it 3 months down the road, that dot may say something different, 3 months down the road different. And once you can start to like put a line together instead of just one dot in time, the picture to me becomes more clear. We start to see more of the full picture.
Sorry about the barking.
No, that's what happens.
Yeah. And so with that, I think it's important to recognize and say that there can be such thing when someone is trying to work through a protocol or heal whatever is going on as almost testing too much. And I say that because when someone is going through, like, I take clients through a 5-phase treatment protocol and will not usually retest until maybe 2 to 3 months minimum after that final phase. Because when the body goes through that healing process, things tend to look messier before they look better. And it can be very deceiving to the client who doesn't really know any better, of like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Or even if we're just talking about starting, keto or carnivore, things tend to look worse before they get better. And so that just needs to be taken with a grain of salt. And, if you're going to have test a baseline and then just continue testing it at, given intervals, and just know that it can change and it can look messier before it looks better.
That's super important point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I 100% agree there, especially when there's like significant weight loss happening, for example, that can skew all kinds of lab values. So I talk about like homeostasis a lot. Like, you have a baseline, a homeostatic set point. Okay, we could test now, but we need to regain some semblance of like homeostasis again, like you were saying, like the healing. Otherwise, we can really get lost in numbers that are fluctuating wildly, while may not indicate any. It's like a natural dynamic of the change that you're creating.
Right. No, right. And I think too, just, going back to the person and what they, what their complaints are, what their symptoms are. So I never like to use symptoms as the end all be all, because what I see oftentimes, especially when looking at like adrenal hormones with sex hormones, is that two people can present with the exact same symptoms, yet their hormone panels can look completely different. And so this is the mistake that a lot of women make, like just going, oh, I feel this way, and I heard that this supplement is good for this thing or this symptom, so I'm going to try to take that. And yes, let's be real. Some people will have relief of the symptom, and some people can get worse. And so that's where it becomes dangerous to just go off of symptoms, because you don't know what was really going on at that baseline point of, whatever the complaints were, to kind of make a proper assessment of what they should actually do for the, for the symptoms that they're experiencing.
100%. I think that's, right on. And I'm probably a supplement's biggest critic. And I know there's a time and place for supplements. And I just see a lot of people just willy-nilly, and I'm going to take everything off the shelf. Because what you said, I have XYZ symptom. Well, there's 40 different supplements that are going to help me with that symptom. So let's pile them on. And at a lot of times, at best, maybe there's no negative effects, but like people don't take into account like the potential detriments of supplements. Like they send you in the wrong direction.
Right. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I know that there's a lot of controversy over supplements just in this space in general. And so, I truly believe in basing this off of someone's lab work. And again, the purpose is to take it for, 30, 60, 90 days, and then the strategy changes. And then you take it for 30, 60, 90 more days as, on a therapeutic basis. And then the strategy changes again. So these kinds of things that I'm talking about, as far as, taking it based on lab work, there's always a purpose, there's always a strategy, and then there's an end place. Like I get a lot of clients who come to me, they're on like literally like a list with like 3 columns of things. And they're like, oh, well, the last person, practitioner, whatever, just kept adding things. I'm like, did they ever tell you were supposed to stop taking all? No, they just kept adding things. And it's like, it's not the best approach. So that's why I like to do it, strategize, by strategies and that kind of thing. So.
Yep. And I like to say, like, a mentor like yourself, a coach like yourself is like an invaluable thing for people, because there is a lot in the weeds that, trying to heal from years, if not decades, of poor nutrition and XYZ. And it's nice to have someone to help guide you. So thank you. This has been a great snack. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I know people can find you at Nutrition the Natural Way, as well as, let me get this right, carnivore.keto.fitness on Instagram, correct?
Yep,
anywhere else?
Yep, you got it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dani. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Snack time's over. Did you enjoy the snack? If so, drop me a comment. Let me know if we should dive deeper and do a full meal on this topic. Also, P.S. if you liked the snacks, you're going to love our bites. A daily email bite, a golden nugget, better than a pasture-raised egg yolk. All right, maybe not that good, but it is a daily bite to optimize your health and nutrition with a meat-based diet. Access right now is totally free. Link below. See you in the bites.